In this video, we're going to cover using color in processing. You define a color using the fill statement. You can find a color by choosing Tools, Color Selector, and picking any color that you like. So currently I have it as a shade of green. I'm going to find a shade of purple that I like. And I found that the copy and paste does not always work the way I want it to. It's going to give me, there's a difference. This is giving me the hexadecimal code instead of the RGB, which works, but I prefer the RGB, which I'll just type over from here. And the reason that I prefer the RGB, which is, and you put it in that order, 133, that's the amount of red, G is 37, that's green, and blue is 193. That's going to give us pretty much the same results, but I have the option here where I can add a transparency as a fourth value. So we are actually using the same fill command, but we're passing 4 parameters instead of 3, which will make it do something new. So if I put in 50, it will make it 50% opaque or 50% transparent. Is your glass half empty or half full? So that's what 50% transparency or opacity looks like. That's 80. That's 10. So you can see if you go down to 0, you're completely transparent. And if you were to go to 100, it's unnecessary because that's the default, but 100% opacity gives you the full color. So that's why I like using RGB, because when you use the RGB values, you have the additional option of adding transparency. So you can see also I've done 3 squares here. And the reason I did that was to show you that you can do fill when you're drawing shapes, and you can use a predefined shape like a rectangle and it will fill just fine. Or you can use a shape where you define the shape by vertex points and it fills just fine. But if you were to draw a square just from lines, it does not, processing will not recognize this as a shape, and you will not get any color. So you can color more complex shapes than just simple shapes like this. Let's look at the bug from last week. So here's my bug, and I've added different color fills to this. And this is what it looks like, and I've added some different colors of blue, and I've made a lighter color here of white to show the windows. Just be aware that when we're coloring arcs here. I've turned the stroke weights heavy in some spots at the bottom of the window, and in some places I've turned the stroke weight completely off by using the no stroke. But what I want you to see, and I'm going to use comments to block out this line of code so that it's ignored. So I can do a block comment with a slash and a star, and close that comment with a star, then a slash, and now the computer will ignore everything between the comments, which is a good way to do testing. You can see that it is coloring the true arc, so you're getting basically a piece of a pie. So for me to color this the way I want it to be, I have to put in a rectangle that's going to overlap from these points. So the rectangle is actually drawn within here, and so it's going to overlap, but you won't see anything getting darker here because it's the exact same color. So be aware that you may need to fill in areas when you are coloring by adding other shapes with no line. When I do that, everything appears exactly the way that I want it to. So this shows you how to add color to your shapes. You can change the color on a line. So for example, I've got a stroke weight of 5 here, and I like the color of my hubcaps. Let's say we want to make this sort of chromed out, not really, but silverish instead of black. We can see that this is my hubcap, which is a color of silver. If I like this fill color to be a metallic, I can change my line color for that as well. And that can be really useful. So I want to go to where I have my stroke weight of 5. And I'm going to find that in here somewhere. Stroke weight of 5. And then I can set stroke and put in the color. That should match the hubcaps, and it will change the stroke color here. So I don't really like the way that looks, but you can clearly see that I have changed the color. Since I don't like it, I can just either comment it out or take it out. I'm going to comment it out because I will leave this example in the classroom for you to look at the code, download it, and play with it if you want.